Hi, Kristin. Thank you so much for coming
Hi.
on the Thrival Nutrition Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be talking with you about EMFs today because I am a noob at this. I will admit I know just the basics, but you just seem like you know so much and so knowledgeable about it. And we're going to be going over what it is, and we'll talk quickly about 5G and just other things we can do in our home. But before we get started, can you introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I am Kristin Moore. I'm a chiropractor, and I am currently running a website called EMF Detox. It's www.emf-detox.com, and also an Instagram page. And I'm really focused right now on getting information out there to people about what EMFs are and how they affect our body. And I run a couple online courses for chiropractors specifically and how they can help their patients with this and recognize, things that within their patient base that show electronic sensitivity and how it could be affecting their patients.
Very interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like this is like a total new world. I'm kind of scared to dive deep into it because
I know
we do want to encourage taking control of what you can take control of.
Exactly.
But it's something that definitely, people know about, but I don't think people actively do things in their home. Like when I was reading through your ebook, I'm like, I don't do that. I should start doing that. So let's start off with just what are they and where do they come from?
Yeah. So EMFs can be a really intense topic because they're all around us. What EMFs basically are energy fields that extend indefinitely throughout space that come from a device. So let's say your computer or your cell phone or your Wi-Fi router or anything electronic. Could be the wiring in your home, right? Anything that's electronic has these electromagnetic fields that extend out from them. And what's important to note is these electromagnetic fields are most concentrated as you're the closest to that source. And as you move further and further away, they become less concentrated. So that's really important later on when we talk about how to reduce our EMF exposure, because distance plays a huge factor in our exposure levels. And then there's four different types of EMFs. And a lot of people don't know that there's four different types. They think it's just all lumped into one category. But it's important to know the four different types so that you can know how to begin to kind of reduce your exposure. So the first are electric fields. And those things, that comes from things like ungrounded electronics, lamps and lighting, power strips, cords and chargers. So you think about leaving that charger plugged into the wall all day long, whether you're charging something or not. Those are the electric fields. I know I do it too. I try to stop, but when my toddler comes in the room and I'm trying to do something, I grab my phone off the charger and leave the charger on the wall. I'm so much better at it now, but still, I have trouble with that too. The second type are magnetic fields, and electric fields and magnetic fields kind of go together. They kind of overlap. Magnetic fields, though, are much more harmful to the body. There are a lot more studies showing the connection of magnetic fields to things like childhood leukemia, other things, right? So in large quantities and large doses. So magnetic fields include things like power lines, like those high voltage power lines that can run through neighborhoods. You also get things like the circuit breaker panels on your house have really high magnetic fields, along with chargers, again, that aren't plugged in or that kind of stuff. The third type are radio frequency radiation, and that includes things that are deemed wireless. So you want to think of your cell phones, your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth headsets, baby monitors, smart meters, all of that. That emits something called radio frequency radiation. And those are the things we tend to keep closest to us, right? Our cell phones, our computers.
Yes.
We put those on our body. We have them in closest proximity to us. And then the fourth type is dirty electricity. And that's something that we don't really talk a lot about as a whole. It includes things like those compact fluorescent light bulbs, like those energy saving light bulbs that we all have in our homes. Well, I don't, I've gotten rid of all of ours. But those curly Q light bulbs that are supposed to be energy saving, those are compact fluorescent light bulbs. Those emit huge amounts of dirty electricity in your home. Solar panel inverters. So if you have solar panels on your house, there's an inverter that goes on the side of your house that converts the energy from the sun into something that we can use in our homes. That emits large levels of dirty electricity on our wiring in our homes. Modern electronics now create lots of dirty electricity. So all these like smart TVs and smart everything create also a lot of dirty electricity.
And I'm so guilty because I love all that stuff.
I know, we all do, right? That's the problem with it all though. Like, we love it all, so we keep buying more of it, but we don't think how it's impacting us. And that's where like this topic gets really like dark too, because none of us want to think about getting rid of any of this, because like, let's say our cell phones, for instance, like our cell phones bring us so much convenience in our life that we've never had before, especially when you have kids, right? Like to be able to have your phone and have contact with your husband or whoever's taking care of your kids, or to be able to reach your kids if they're at school, like to have like the ability to be in contact with people at the drop of a hat, I mean, is amazing. So we don't want to really think about getting rid of them. And I don't think we necessarily have to get rid of all of our modern conveniences. I think there's ways that we can go about and make them safer and less harmful to our body.
Yes. So share with us a couple of studies that you've come across that really, share the EMF exposure and it being linked to negative effects of our health. It sounds like it's definitely something we need to be concerned about, but obviously when we have research, I think it sometimes helps like, okay, this is serious.
Totally.
Like this is some foo-foo stuff. This is impacting our health.
Yeah, I think it's super important to understand how it affects our body, because in theory, to say our cell phone could be creating negative health effects on our body, I mean, it sounds just so out there, right? But there's a doctor named Dr. Martin Pall, and he's a researcher, and he was able to actually determine how these EMFs physiologically affect our body. So just to get into the kind of biochemistry, just really quickly, we have cells in our body, right? And on the cell membrane, so the outside of that cell, you have something called a voltage-gated calcium ion channel. So it's this channel that allows for calcium ions to flow in and out of the cell. Well, these calcium channels they're voltage gated, right? So they're very electrically sensitive. So when you go into a high EMF environment, or if you take that cell phone and you put it right up to your head, or you have one of these devices really close to you, and you have an influx of these electromagnetic fields on your body, then what happens is these voltage-gated calcium channels can become stimulated, and they will open. And they will open, and they will allow calcium ions to flood into the cell. So what does this mean? Well, these calcium ions, and I believe Dr. McCullough said that they will flood into the cell at a rate of 1 million calcium ions per second. So it's a huge amount. It's not just a couple calcium ions, it's like tons. So you get this massive influx now of intracellular calcium, which then goes through a couple chemical reactions and creates this massive amount of oxidative stress. And we all know in terms of health and healing in the body is that this oxidative stress is basically the precursor to so many of our chronic diseases these days. So what he was able to quantify is that the amount of EMFs in our environment are affecting our health long term. It's not carrying around a cell phone for a day or two, putting it up to your head for 1 or 2 phone calls, right? It's cumulative. So this oxidative stress builds up in our body over time, and can create, long-term damage, not necessarily short-term damage.
Yeah. And that is so scary just because we have, like you mentioned, so many different types, and we carry our phones and we have our computers and we have Bluetooths in our car. And I mean, it feels like everywhere we go, everything we do, we're exposed to it at some level. And that's just like with food and so many other things. It's just that like that acute, I mean, yes, it's not going to make you keel over that like tomorrow, but it's the chronic and every single day we're just exposed to it. And I'm sure as we get more technology driven, it's like going to be even more. So bringing up 5G, which I know a lot of people are worried about, and we talked a little bit about recording, share with us some of the concerns with that, because I know that's a big thing. I don't know too much about it, but people are worried about it.
Yeah, 5G is coming, and parts of the US already have 5G installed in their neighborhoods. And I will tell you, I'm not an expert on 5G. Just because, it's a whole nother topic on its own, where, even some of the top researchers aren't experts on 5G yet, just because it's so brand new. But it's something that hasn't been tested yet for safety. And the telecommunications companies are really pushing the rollout of this 5G, which we're on a 4G system right now, 4G LTE. So they're going to be upgrading it to 5G. And what's going to happen is these frequencies are different than the frequencies we're currently operating on. They're much, they don't penetrate through walls and buildings as easily. Therefore, you have to have cell towers located much closer in proximity to where we live. So instead of having a cell tower, 2 miles away from us, we're still going to have those 4G cell towers that are, a couple miles away, hopefully, from us. But now we're also going to have cell towers in front of our homes. So we're going to have a huge influx of these electromagnetic frequencies within the next couple of years. It's going in some cities already. Other cities, might take a year, 2 or 3. But yeah, it's coming. And my understanding—
And is the goal of it just to get better reception?
Yeah, faster speeds. So we're
really fast.
I know, right? Well, the thing about it is they want these faster speeds because all of a sudden we're getting this influx of every device we buy is a smart device.
Yeah, that's true.
So, now our refrigerators are smart devices, right? And they all are going to interconnect, right? Our refrigerator is going to be able to talk to our dishwasher that's going to say your dishes are clean, and they're all going to talk amongst each other. So they need a faster network for all of our devices. It's called the Internet of Things, and it's all of these things that create their own kind of interweb within our home and within our life. And they're all going to be able to communicate, which, I mean, it kind of scares me on its own, not to mention the whole EMF thing. But
we have a fridge that have the screen, and so our Ring is connected to that.
Exactly.
So we see the doorbell on our TV screen.
Right. So
or
that's
our fridge screen.
And that's just the start. Just wait until, and you can probably connect your Nest to it all, and your smart thermostats, and all of it's going to connect. So you can already see how it's starting, right? And that's why they need this bigger capacity. And I could be mistaken, but I think part of it is too, all of these smart cars and driverless cars that they're wanting to get out too, I think are going to need to run on this network as well. So
I didn't even honestly think about like Teslas and stuff and how that, because I mean, I know we're trying to get away from gas resources, but never even really thought about the electric type sources. Now, I mean, I don't know. It's just, which one's worse?
Right. But all cars are bad these days. I think the Tesla cars are beautiful. I love them, but I don't know that I would actually go out and buy one because they are super high in EMFs, but so are most cars. Like, most cars are Bluetooth enabled, have Wi-Fi in them, and have, screens behind the seats so that kids can watch movies. You know what I mean? Like, so many cars now are super high in EMFs. That's getting hard to get away from, but I would probably avoid electric until we can hopefully make them a little bit safer. But I mean, right now I drive a hybrid, so hybrids aren't the best either. But at least they save a little gas, but they are high in EMFs too.
Yeah. So like, what are your thoughts on like the wearables? Which I know we've always heard like, don't put your phone near your boobs. And I mean, I feel like those things we hear a lot, but now that like Fitbits and Apple Watches and all that, what are your thoughts on that? Because it is a constant source.
I'm not a fan. I know so many people are so attached to their wearable devices. And so I always get a little bit of like an eye roll when I say this to people. But I'm not a fan. And I'm even more not a fan of them when you're pregnant or when you have a brand new baby and you're carrying them all the time, just because not only are you exposing yourself, but your newborn child or unborn child. Because think about it, like if I had a smartwatch on my wrist right now, and if I was pregnant and I was touching my belly all the time, like think about the exposure to that unborn child. So I urge, and that's who's using these devices right now. Like, because the smartwatch connects to your phone. You don't have to have your phone on you all the time. So you can look at, see your messages, you can see your apps, and so many moms are using them. And what I would say, if you can't go without them, then at least put them on airplane mode where they can still track, your movements, your steps, your everything, but they're not constantly transmitting to your phone. So you can shut that off. And I also wouldn't recommend sleeping with them, just because you don't need that radiation while you're sleeping. I mean, you want to create the best sleep environment possible. So you don't need more radiation on you while you're sleeping.
Yeah, I use it too. I love it, using it, tracking my sleep, but I don't track my sleep every night. I only maybe track it like nowadays, like once a month. And so I won't wear it during the day I mean, it's like that constant EMF. I mean, but it is like, you love it. And it's like, I guess like you could do that too, but it is nice like when you're driving and it's like,
totally
vibrates when you need to turn, or like, oh, you got a text real quick. And it's a convenience. I mean, I guess same with food.
Oh, like, totally get it.
Convenience, or it's going to be like something else related.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, we have to weigh. I'm not going to be the person that's going to tell you to get rid of everything. I'm going to try to help you to figure out how to make it, work for your life. But the wearables are hard because you have them on your body at all times. So if you can keep it on airplane mode for most of the time, if your device allows for that, where you can shut it on airplane mode so you don't get the cell signals and the Wi-Fi signals and everything, and you just have, the computer there and, not all the extra signals. If you can keep it like that on the majority of the time, then that's ideal. But I definitely encourage moms that are, pregnant or have new babies that they're holding all the time. I do recommend that they just get rid of them for the time being. And then, if they need to start using them later, start using them with a little bit more awareness with the airplane mode and that stuff.
And with our phones, I would say that's one that almost everyone has now. It's part of our life. So is there anything we can reduce it from our phone?
Yeah, so phones are hard. They're really tricky because they are a huge source of EMFs. And we keep them the closest to our body out of anything, right? Like, other than the wearables, right? We will put our phones in our pocket and we'll have them in our pocket all day long, or we'll take them and we'll put them up against our brain and our head. And that's something to note too, back to where we talked about Dr. Martin Paul and his findings and his research. Areas that have the highest concentration of those voltage gated channels are your brain, your heart, and your reproductive organs. So those are the three areas that are going to be most vulnerable to EMF radiation. So if you're taking that cell phone and putting it straight up to your head, it's going to long-term affect what's going on in your brain, because there's so many more voltage gated channels up there.
Can you repeat the places? Your head, heart,
the brain and nervous system, your heart, and your reproductive organs.
Cool.
So, think about like just holding our cell phone up to our head. Like, people do that all the time, and it's so common. What I would say for tips to do with your cell phone is, first of all, just get it off your body. We talked about distance, right? So create as much distance as you can from your cell phone to your body. So use speakerphone if you're talking on the phone. If you can't use, corded headphones or air tube headphones are even better. Just create distance between you and your phone. Don't put your phone in your pocket. Keep it in your purse. If you're a man and you can't, put it in your pocket and turn it on airplane mode. You know what I mean? Like, just create distance between you and your device. Like, that's the best thing you can do, because cell phones are awful.
Yeah.
We have to use them, and I'm never going to stop using my cell phone. But if you can create more distance between you and it, that's going to be, there's so many other things you can do, but that's like number one. You need to distance yourself from them.
I love one of the tips that you had in your ebook. It was keeping it charged. I didn't even realize that, like, when it's going on dead, it's so much more significant in, like, the EMFs. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't understand why, but when I do read it, I have a meter that I read, different EMF levels. And when I read it from my phone, the lower the battery, I believe it's because it causes the phone to work harder, generating more EMFs. But it's kind of crazy. So keeping your phone, keeping it relatively charged. I mean, we can't keep it charged all the time, but that will definitely affect the EMF output of your phone for sure.
Yeah. And then one of the first places you said to make sure that you are not getting offenders is your bedroom, which obviously, we spend like half of the day in there, mostly sleeping, at night. Yes. But what are the most major offenders that you find in the bedroom that can be fixed?
So the bedroom is like the first and foremost place that you need to, take control over, because if you think about it, we sleep for hopefully 8 hours a day, if not more, some of us less. But if you take 8 hours a day and you think about your exposure during that time, if you can reduce your exposure for 8 hours each day, that will significantly reduce your overall exposure, within a lifetime, by probably a third, right? So if you can, what I recommend is shutting your Wi-Fi off at night so that you don't have Wi-Fi on in your home. Also getting all of your electronics out of your bedroom. So cell phones, computers, none of that needs to be in your room while you're sleeping. I know people argue with me and they go, well, what if I get an emergency phone call during the middle of the night, that kind of stuff. And I just say, well, then turn your ringer on high and put it outside of the room as far away from you as you can while you can still hear it. So cell phones, all your electronics out of your room. And then I actually turn the power out. I go to my breaker right before going to bed and I flip the switch to my bedroom. So I don't have any electric, magnetic, or dirty electricity fields in my bedroom too. So my bedroom's completely,
Zen.
I wouldn't say completely EMF free, because I'm sure there's some from, towers and power lines outside of my house, right? But it's really low EMF because I've gotten rid of all the electric, magnetic, and dirty electricity fields. I've shut off the Wi-Fi, so there's no Wi-Fi, and all of the electronics are as far away from my room as possible, so that radio frequency is significantly decreased as well. And since doing all of that, I have slept so well, and so is my husband, and so is my son. My son actually started sleeping through the night when I started making these changes when he was about 8 months old. So it's great for you, but it's also really good for kids. He wakes up so happy and so well rested, and I can't recommend making those changes enough, because
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know Wi-Fi routers, and I've even seen like at events, people that like their job or company is like making these like master kill switches where it's literally just like a switch, just like a light switch and turn off and it kills Wi-Fi and stuff, which is awesome and amazing. But I feel like in previous houses we've been in, they put like the Wi-Fi, or where you connect the Wi-Fi, like in your room, which is crazy. So is the only way we can do that is just shutting it off, and you would be good?
Yes. So shut it off. I mean, I would recommend, if that's the only place possible, I mean, you might be able to get cords and to have like somebody come out and to be able to move the Wi-Fi router. Like, you don't have to have cords inside your house. You can run it along the outside of your house and move it. You should be able to move it. I mean, the best option is to not have Wi-Fi at all and to hardwire your devices. But when you're just first starting out, looking at, EMFs and trying to reduce them in your life, then yes, turning your Wi-Fi off is, while you're sleeping is the best first step. And the best way to do that is by using a Christmas light timer. I don't know if you've seen those that they're an outlet timer, and you plug them into the wall and you set them for whatever time to turn on and whatever time to turn off. And you just plug your Wi-Fi into that. And so every night at 10 o'clock at night, your Wi-Fi will go off, and every morning at 6 a.m. it'll come back on, whatever time you set it. So that way you don't have to think about it every single night. Because a lot of Wi-Fi routers now don't have an on and off switch. So you have to actually unplug it from the wall. And I mean, I have a toddler, you have kids, remembering to do that all the time doesn't happen just because our lives are busy. So I like the automatic, it does it on its own and I don't have to think about it.
Yes. Can you give us one or two tech or appliances that most people aren't even thinking about giving off EMFs?
I mean, appliances in your kitchen. So just the standard refrigerator, stove, not even appliances in the kitchen, could be laundry or washer and dryer, all of those things. They have so many transformers and motors in them. And now some of them are even, like you said, with the refrigerator and that kind of stuff, are getting these chips that have devices that have Wi-Fi enabled, capacity in them too. So they can actually be large sources. So I try to encourage people to move where their, let's say your couch is on the opposite side of the wall as your refrigerator. That could be a really big source. So you wouldn't necessarily think that you're getting large sources of EMFs because your Wi-Fi is really far away from you and your, you don't see anything in your vision, but your refrigerator could be on the opposite side of the wall and could be blasting you with a ton. So kitchens are the area in the house that has the largest amount of EMFs that come from them. And I would say another thing is a lot of us, especially the younger generations, don't have this in our home anymore, but those wireless home phones are really big in EMFs as well. Oh, so not the corded home phones. The corded home phones are fine, but the wireless phones that we kind of grew up with that you can walk around the house and hold, those are really high in EMFs as well. So that's another big thing.
Interesting. And then I know you mentioned how do you test for EMFs? So you have
yeah, so you can get different kinds of meters, and I talk all about this in my guide, but I have a meter that I use in my home, and I can measure different fields with the meters. Not one meter will measure all 4 types of EMFs. Okay. So it's important to note because people will think, oh, I got a meter and it measures everything, but you have to do a little bit more digging than that. But yes, you can get a meter, and they span, right? So it could be somewhere around the $200 range for a meter, or it could be significantly more depending on the quality that you want. I tend to go with the cheaper options that are more affordable, that are, not professional. You don't need a professional meter for your home. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars. If you can get 2 different meters that measure all 4 types of EMFs in your home, that's I would go with the lower cost options. But I kind of give a couple different examples in my guide of ones that are good quality, that aren't the professional priced, but are reliable and sturdy meters. And then also you could hire a building biologist if you wanted somebody to come in and do kind of a professional reading on your home and really give you some good advice. I recommend people that are making modifications to their homes to hire a professional, because they have the schooling, they have the background to come in and to really help you make changes. I have people ask me all the time, well, can't I just paint EMF shielding paint on my house and be fine? But I say, well, if you still have the Wi-Fi on in your home, you can't do that, because the Wi-Fi can't escape. If you paint this shielding paint all over your home, you're going to be blasting yourself off from the inside, but not getting anything from the outside. So there's so much that goes with this. Or they'll think, oh, I can just paint all four walls of my bedroom, but then they don't realize that their electrical to their home is grounded on their water pipes. So you're getting the radiation from your water pipes radiating up into your bedroom still. So there's so much that goes with it that I would highly recommend. There we go. I would highly recommend getting a professional to help you if you're going to try to make modifications to your home.
Wow. That's cool. Last question is just like, is there anything we can do to influence our EMF exposure besides changing the couple things? One specifically that I feel like the Himalayan pink salt lamp always gets credit for, and I don't even know if there's any research. I just like it 'cause it's pretty. Is there research behind those lamps?
You know, I love them too. I have a couple in my home. I think they're beautiful. I love that they put in those positive ions into our home, and I just think they make the whole atmosphere of my home feel better. So I love them. I have not seen a meter change where it significantly reduced EMF exposure. That being said, I know there's tons of articles out there where people say that it helps. I think it's kind of along the lines of those shungite crystals and all of the other crystals that are out there that say that they can reduce EMF exposure. My thought is that most likely they do help, but the electromagnetic spectrum is huge, right? It's you know, it's thousands upon thousands of frequencies. And my thought, this is without having research to back it, because there isn't really solid research out there that I've seen that really proves, because if you can't see a meter reading change between the EMF environment in your home, and you can't see that meter reading drop when that lamp gets turned on, then to me that tells me it's not making a huge shift. But what likely is happening is that it's reducing a couple frequencies out of that spectrum of thousands upon thousands. So I don't think they're bad. I think they're great. I use them myself, but it's not something I would say was your first line of defense. But if you have them, they're great. Then keep using them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, share with us where we can find you, because I read your ebook and it was fantastic, and I became educated on it. So everyone should get their hands on it. So where can we find you on the interweb?
So I have my Instagram page. It's EMF Detox. And I also have my website, which is www.emf-detox.com. And on there, I have my little mini ebook that I told you about that you read. And I give kind of a step-by-step guide to reducing your EMF exposure in your home and in your life. It's not getting rid of all of your electronics, but it's how to kind of live in harmony with them and begin to reduce your exposure. So highly, highly recommend that guide for people that are really wanting to start the process of decreasing their EMF exposure.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love what you do, and I love your podcast, and I just think you're wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.